that tomorrow, one family will bring their story to the very heart of Congress as they share with lawmakers what happened on October the 24th of last year, a date when they say their family was suddenly obliterated by a series of drone strikes in Pakistan. Rafiq Rehman and his two surviving children are the subject of a new documentary entitled Unmanned: America's Drone Wars. And I had the opportunity of speaking with them earlier today, as well as the filmmaker Robert Greenwald. And I began by asking the family to describe the experience today in what has become ground zero for America's drone program.
I had noticed that in the allotted area for my family members, there was a newly dug grave. So I, at that moment, knew something had happened, and I was very worried. I had walked into the center of the village, and I saw some young children. So I had asked them that what happened, whose funeral is getting prepared. And they said that it was Latif Rehman's mother. She had been hit by a drone. And at that moment, I knew my mother had passed away, as Latif Rehman is my older brother. I was under a full shock, and I just wanted to faint. I felt as if a limb had been cut off from me for losing my mother. We saw two missiles going like this down into the ground. At that moment, it had become as if we couldn't tell the difference between night and day. It became dark all of a sudden, and we heard an explosion sound, and I could hear my grandmother crying. I had noticed in my left leg there was a sudden pain, and it was just increasing. I was so scared that all I could think of doing was just running, but the pain was just very hard to bear. It was Eid day, and my grandmother and I were at home getting prepared, and she said, "Come out, let's go to collect the okra in the fields." She was showing me how to tell the difference between a ripe okra and ones that still needed time to grow. Then I had heard, after a while, I heard a dum-dum noise, and I saw these two missiles come hit the ground. Everything was dark, I couldn't see anything, but I had heard her cry, and next thing I knew, I started seeing blood coming out of my hand. I tried to wipe it away with my shawl, but the blood wouldn't stop. The blood just kept coming out, and I was just so scared. All I could think of doing was just running. I didn't know where to run, but I just was running and trying to wipe the blood away. When I got there to the house, I saw all of my neighbors and my relatives. They were all mourning, and I was asking them that, "Where is my mother's body? I want to see her face." They wouldn't let me see her face. They said that you don't want to see it, because later I found out that the drone had blown her to pieces.
Robert, I have to say it's a remarkable film that you've put together.
Thank you.
What motivated you to make this film?
I was in Pakistan, and I was interviewing and researching and investigating and filming, and I talked to person after person, and the stories I heard were so radically different than the perceptions in the United States, what the traditional media was reporting. And when I met this extraordinary family of educators whose grandmother was killed, I connected emotionally. Everyone has a mother, everyone has a grandmother, and I felt honor-bound to do whatever I could to tell the story using film and to try to bring these people to the United States, the help of people like you and others, and Alan Grayson, where there'll be a briefing Tuesday to gain a wide audience for their story.
The American government argues that these drone strikes, if that's what happened in your case, are carefully planned and extremely accurate. Is that your experience?
Well, I'm not sure about how accurate they are, but I know in our case that we are a family of teachers. So if they're trying to target people, I don't know why they would be targeting my mother and my children and a family of teachers.
But do you, Rafiq, accept that in areas of Waziristan and Baluchistan, there are large numbers of separatist groups, terror groups? And was it not in Waziristan that the terrorist Batullah Masood was actually killed by a drone strike? Is there not reason for the Americans to attack these areas because of the presence of so many terror groups.
I've
heard of Taliban, I've heard of it associated with Afghanistan, I've heard of Baitullah Masood, but honestly, I'm just a teacher, I'm not a politician.
From 2004, President Musharraf was cooperating with the Americans in terms of drone strikes. We know from the United Nations that Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif has actually cooperated with these drone strikes. If there is an objection to what's been happening, shouldn't your objections be addressed to your own government, who appear to have cooperated with this administration?
I spoke to my local agent, my local political officer, and I filed a complaint about this, and they sent me a letter that said that yes, what has happened to you is very sad, and it was probably done by mistake, but we are not the ones that you should be speaking to. You should be speaking to the Americans.
Do you accept, Robert, that the administration itself is now reducing the number of drone strikes? The president has already said that he wishes to transfer management of this program from the CIA to the military. Are you satisfied that these steps are at least moving in the right direction in terms of accountability and transparency?
I hope so, but better is not good enough, because we're starting at an extraordinary low level, a policy that's morally wrong and a policy that by all evidence is not making us safer. So I welcome the steps, but a lot more needs to be done. Innocent people are being killed. There must be investigations, and the policy must change.
Are these drone strikes deterring terrorists, or are they having the opposite effect in inciting terrorists?
In my world, where I'm just a teacher, I've noticed that ever since the drones have started, that families are scared to send their children to school, not out of fear of a terrorist, but out of fear that these drones will come onto their children. Before, in my school, I used to teach 50 children. Now I only teach 20 on a good day. No one wants to send their children there. No one wants to play outside. No one wants to play soccer anymore. No one wants to play cricket anymore. What I believe is, yes, such events can create hatred, but you cannot cure hatred with hatred.
Rafiq, Rehman and his family will be appearing before members of Congress tomorrow in an attempt to personalize the impact of America's drone program.